Our FDA-authorized claim is that we enhance feelings of relaxation. We do not diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The remainder of our disclaimer is very important, so please pause the video now and read it in its entirety before proceeding. Thank you.
Hello. I've been asked to review the potential of the Magnesphere to the treatment of neoplastic disease. We need to understand first that a biological system is certainly an aggregation of microscopic permanent spinning magnets called atoms. And the interatomic relationships are critical to formation of the structure of molecules and tissues. Therefore, the electromagnetic profile of tissue is critically important in terms of establishing and maintaining cooperativity and coherence between the various micro-constituents of the body. Now, the Magnesphere is a Helmholtz coil configuration. Each coil is 7 feet in diameter, and the concept is to produce homogeneous isotropic magnetic fields which bathe the living system in such manner to promote renormalization of the magnetic profiles of tissues. It was established some time ago, beginning in the early 70s, by individuals like David Cohen of MIT, that brain magnetic profiles were in the picotesla range. That is, for example, an alpha brainwave corresponds to nanogauss magnetic fields, that is a billionth of a Gauss, wherein the geomagnetic field is a half a Gauss. Understanding that the magnetic profiles of living tissue are literally millions of times weaker than the Earth's steady magnetic field in which we have evolved. Thus, the Magnesphere produces a non-ionizing, non-invasive form of radiation, which is particularly indicated to renormalize the magnetic profile of critical tissues. The strongest heart field is about 50 picotesla, remembering that pico is 10 to the minus 12, or a trillionth of a Tesla. And just to orient you, a Tesla is 10,000 Gauss, which is about 20,000 times stronger than the Earth's geomagnetic field. And of course, MRI uses about a Tesla in terms of the flux density of the magnetic field utilized to produce images. Now, the Magnesphere is a holistic technique wherein the entire body is bathed in renormalizing magnetic profiles. Now, understanding that cancer involves the production of pleomorphic heterogeneous tissues. The cells are anomalous in terms of patterning, such that there is a loss of coherence, congruence, and organization of tissues, producing electrophysiologic states that are should I say inhomeostatic. That is, they don't provide an organization that promulgates the normalcy of life. Now, of course, the concept of the Magnesphere is based upon the utilization of Jacobson resonance, which is the unified field equation. That is mc squared equals bvlq. The equation represents the equalization of electromagnetic field interaction energy and the intrinsic energy of a mass, which remains as a constituent of the biological system. By this, I refer to the mass being any number of microconstituents of living systems, such as hormones, enzymes, neurotransmitters. It could be a transforming DNA segment. It could be oncogenic proteins. It could be any a critical molecule involved with the neoplastic process. Particular targets for restructuring on an elemental level would include, for example, cytokines, interferon, interleukins, gap proteins. It would include telomeres and subunits of telomerase enzyme. One of the theoretical bases of cancer treatment with the Magnesphere involves the belief, or the possibility, I should say, that the tumor utilizes telomerase enzyme to prevent the shortening of the telomeres, maintaining the vivacity of the tumor itself. In other words, it uses a normal defense mechanism of the body in order to maintain the life of the neoplastic tissue. So if we target subunits of telomerase enzyme and or telomeres, we can influence the relationship of critical structures. And by critical structures, I mean the various, not only molecules, but the various atoms that comprise living systems. Because the positions of atoms in space-time, and of course they are quite numerous, trillions and trillions of atoms in space-time, add up to the totality of the organization and the uniformity of the system. So we can literally target, using Jacobson resonance, we can target critical sequences of DNA, we can target RNA, we can target oncogenic proteins, we can target any of the various molecules that communicate information, from the intercellular gutters to the intracellular mechanisms, influencing, of course, the solitons that traverse cell membranes, that is, the solitary wave solutions to nonlinear relativistic field problems, that is, the cell membranes enhance the weak triggers, outside the cell, in order to activate ATP and actin filaments in a piezoelectric system. In other words, in the treatment of cancer, what we would do is make the calculation to target critical molecules to reorganize the congruent oscillatory trajectories, the coherence of said molecular species, the cooperativity of atoms and molecules in such a manner so that we can avoid the polyploidy of cancer cells. Reorganizing the relationship of atoms, molecules, cells via magnetic profiles is critically important, which is what the Magnesphere does. And it sets it up so that the body can actually heal itself because it stimulates immune function. We can, by enhancing the autonomic nervous system parasympathetic innervation, we can increase, immune function. We can reactivate T cells. We can do a number of things that are critically important in terms of basic biochemical immune function, as well as producing an anti-angiogenesis effect. When a tumor grows, it has to establish its own system of collateral circulation, and we can dry it up. We can produce a dehydration of the relationship between the tumor and surrounding tissues, such that the circulatory system that feeds the tumor would be desiccated. Producing this kind of desiccation prevents the tumor from feeding. It prevents the tumor from receiving nourishment. So an anti-angiogenesis effect can be achieved with utilization of particular magnetic profiles in the picotesla range. Keep in mind that the picotesla range magnetic profiles represent a kind of quantum gravity for living systems, most particularly human systems. And the fundamental quantum gravitational interactions represented by very, very weak magnetic fields represent the means by which atoms and molecules relate to one another. Now, interestingly, many people have said, well, magnetic fields have no effect on human tissue. That's erroneous. They do, in fact, because all human tissue is made up of atoms, and atoms are permanent spinning magnets composed of subunits that are permanent spinning magnets with angular momentum and inertial moments, etc. So that very, very weak magnetic fields are critically important in the maintenance of the structure and function of a biological tissue from subatomic levels through atomic, molecular, and tissue, as well as organs and organ systems. The relationship of the tissues of organ systems is based upon the interrelationship of magnetic moments of critical particles that comprise the living system. So the ultimate method by which the Magnesphere influences tumors and shrinks tumors is more than twofold. It includes, number one, anti-angiogenesis effect, a a drying effect. This is achieved by the utilization of several different magnetic signals, including amplitude and frequency, such that the welling up of fluid is achieved by one signal, and then another signal literally pushes the fluid out of the tissues, drying the tissues. This desiccation process produces an anti-angiogenesis effect. Another effect would be direct targeting of critical molecules, such as, oncogenes and oncogenic associated proteins, in order to restructure these critical molecules on an elemental level, on an atomic level and a subatomic level. Think about a magnet, a regular bar magnet, with a piece of paper placed over it and iron filings sprinkled on the paper. And you tap the paper a few times, and then the iron filings reveal or manifest the orientation of the magnetic lines of force on the paper, except that there are a few iron filings that are out of sync. If you tap the paper too lightly, nothing happens. If you tap the paper just right, the iron filings that are out of place will snap right back in place, aided by the iron filings already in place, as well as the resonance effect of the pressure wave. That's basically what we're doing. We're producing particle jumps in DNA and other structures by producing what is known as a phonon via magnetic pressure wave. That is the electromagnetic interaction energy that's produced by the interaction of the human body and the magnetic field produces an energy. That energy is promulgated as a pressure wave through the gravitational field or the dark energy field, and that pressure wave comes back to the phonon field, which is ordinary matter, to produce a vibrational quality in a particular target. And that target would have intrinsic energy, mc squared, equal to the electromagnetic interaction energy produced by BVLQ. That is the magnetic field interacting with the longest dimension of the biological system, and V is an inertial velocity or constant velocity motion, such as the Earth orbital velocity, and Q is normalized. It's unit charge. I won't go into the derivation of the equation. It's a little bit complicated. That's available upon request. The details of the mathematics and physics are available. They're published. So essentially, the Magnesphere represents a holistic, non-invasive, safe, and efficacious approach to cancer because it can renormalize the magnetic profiles of tissue, causing particle jumps on elemental levels to restore the order on a cellular, a subcellular, of course, molecular and atomic level through anti-angiogenesis effect, as well as a restructuring and a restructuring of critical molecules, as well as a reordering of the coherence and cooperativity of atoms and molecules, because disease changes the magnetic profile of tissues. It makes it too weak or too strong or unbalanced. And what the objective is with the Magnesphere is to reorder the balance and the normal magnetic profile or flux density or magnitude of the fields that are involved with maintaining the structure and function of biological systems from an electrophysiological point of view, to restore homeostatic function by aiding the body to heal itself through immune stimulation as well. So there are a number of different effects that the Magnesphere produces in the safest way imaginable, because the magnetic fields that are being used are normal to the body. They've been measured to be associated with the brain and the heart and other bodily tissues. And the logical approach to cancer involves what's called photon-phonon transductions or conversions. That is, the electromagnetic field produces a gravity wave, promulgates an energy, a pressure wave, through the luminescence field, or the quantum vacuum, if you will, to come back to the phonon field, which is ordinary matter, to produce mechanical vibrations which reorder the structure and function of critical molecules, as well as reordering communications between atoms and molecular species. Basically, that's how the Magnesphere affects cancer. And it's my experience that when the proper calculations are made and the proper magnetic profiles are utilized, tumors shrink. They simply involute, like balloons losing air. And ultimately, with the advancing technological steps, including more coils than 2, 4 or 6 coils, and putting the body in water to improve conductivity, ultimately the future of medicine in terms of cancer therapy is represented by Jacobson resonance as it's applied through the Magnesphere and advancing technology. Thank you for listening.